Wow, another week has flown by on the Mike Graham Show, a week full of amazing guests, new faces, old faces, even some unexpected faces. They all dropped into MG Towers, including sitting MPs, the ex-Deputy Speaker of the House. The list goes on and on and on, and we've got lots more to bring you. We had brand new planks, which you've had plenty to say about, daily planks, gremlins in the system, Edward the News Hughes back from his holidays, and we introduced your wonderful voice notes in a week where Trump put Starmer firmly in his place and then upset loads of people with his comments about our soldiers. The Chagos Islands was going on, the Greenland rout was hitting the headlines, more defections, it was all happening, and we were right at the centre of it. What is going to happen this week? We are so back. It's time, of course, for the Roundup.
All right, get on your horse, it's Mike Graham's Roundup. It's Mike Graham's Roundup.
A little message to say that Emmanuel Macron apparently was wearing dark glasses because of an eye condition. Well, I can see clearly now the rain has gone, or raindrops keep falling on my head, possibly. Also, what about Janis Joplin, she says. Yeah, Janis Joplin, what a great, great woman. I mean, you know, oh, Lord, can you buy me a Mercedes-Benz? My friends all drive Porsches. I must make amends. I tried all my lifetime to love to the end. Oh, Lord, won't you buy me a Mercedes-Benz? I don't even know why I sang that, but, you know, why not? You know, this is what we can do now on this show, because I don't get people in my ear going, shut up.
Hi, mate. Louise from Liverpool here. I just wanted to leave a quick note to tell you how wonderful it is to wake up every morning to your dulcet tones. What a great show you have. It really is the best breakfast show anywhere. Keep up the great work, and this is the best thing you've ever done leaving that old station. Love all your guests. Love the heron of the day. Love lie of the day. Best wishes, mate. Bye.
Let's talk to Nick Buckley now, MBE, a man who once ran to be Mayor of Manchester, a man who has an awful lot of great opinions that many of you will agree with, some of you might disagree with. Nick, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the Mike Graham Show.
Good morning, and thank you for the invite, and thank you for allowing me to be a guest on your new fantastic show.
It's going so well. We're so glad you can join us, and we hope you can make it a regular thing. We've got to kick off with this tweet from Donald Trump this morning, 7:15, because I've always said I was quite surprised that the American administration and Trump didn't sort of put their foot down about the ridiculous giveaway of the Chagos Islands. Not only a giveaway, but one where we're actually paying through the nose to take it, to give Mauritius the right to take it away. He's now saying it's an act of great stupidity. He's saying that we're doing it for no good reason whatsoever. Surely this must encourage those of us who think it's a bad idea to maybe block it.
I think we do need to block it. I can't understand how a Prime Minister can start giving away British territories.
Right.
He's not even consulted the people of the islands.
No.
You know, even they don't get a say. It reminds me that it's a form of slavery. The British government is still saying, you are our slaves and we're going to give you away. We're going to sell you no matter what you say. I'm sure Trump has already told Starmer at the very beginning, this is stupid. Don't do it. We're your biggest ally. We protect the world. Do not do this. But Starmer is an ideologue. He's doing it to trying to be pink and fluffy, to make reparations for the British Empire. But I don't understand why a British Prime Minister would do this. Those islands are extremely important if there ever was a third world war.
Yes. I mean, this is the thing, and because what Trump has done, I think, rather cleverly, is he has put, obviously, Greenland on the map, if you like, which nobody was talking about even 2 months ago. Nobody thought a second thing about it. But he's also putting pressure on Europe to get a backbone, you know, to spend more money on defence, to actually stop relying on America for everything that they want to be saved from, and to actually stand up for themselves. And Starmer seems now to be still, you know, like a rabbit in headlights, doesn't know what to do. I don't know what he's going to say about Trump's tweet this morning, but he hasn't said anything yet.
He hasn't. I think post Second World War, that era now is officially over. Since the Second World War, Europe has relied on America to be our protector, to be our protector, our trading partner, and we have taken advantage of the Americans. We haven't defended ourselves, our borders. We've just totally relied on the new big boys. And the Americans are sick of it. And they've been trying to tell us for a long time now, we need to do better. We need to spend more on our forces. But we kept saying, but the world's lovely now, Americans. You're the only ones who are aggressive. The Americans, the world's lovely. We don't need to spend money on forces. We need to spend it on social programs. And the Americans kept saying, but the world will change, mate. The world will change. And it's changed now. So we need to catch up. And I think Trump now has run out of patience with Europe. He's not saying we should spend more money on Europe anymore. He's saying we're not spending any more money on you.
Yeah.
We're going to cut you loose. And because we're going to cut you loose, we need to make sure that our defenses are solid. That's why he's dealt with Venezuela. That's why he's looking at Greenland. I don't think he's going to invade Greenland. But
No.
I think he's going to buy it because he sees that as a strategic arm of his plan to protect North America.
Yeah, and I think he's absolutely right to do so because, as I said, not many people even knew much about Greenland's existence, never mind its strategic role in protecting the sort of North Atlantic. And so if you're the United States of America and you're Donald Trump, it makes perfect sense for him to do what he's doing. Some people might not like the way he goes about it, but he always gets what he wants in the end. And it looks as though in terms of the way that Europe is having to kowtow because of the now threat of tariffs and all the rest of it, he will probably get whatever it is that he wanted to get in the first place, right?
He probably will. The irony here is this. We care a lot about Ukraine and Ukraine's borders. We now care so much about Greenland. And most people can't even find Greenland on a map, let's be honest.
Right.
But we care about their borders. But you know what? No one seems to care about our borders.
No
one seems to care about the borders in Western Europe. So this is just virtue signaling. This is an anti-American sentiment. And that might be correct to be anti-American. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it isn't. But I know what is correct. And that's putting the British people, British borders first before we start worrying about other people's borders. And that's exactly what Trump is doing. He's putting America first, American borders first, and American priorities first.
Yeah.
And he's not relying on Europe anymore. And I think he's getting to a point where he's going to say, if anything bad happens to Europe, like the first two world wars where we came and we helped, do not rely on us for the next time because we're sick of you. We're sick of you pulling us into world wars because you can't solve your own crap.
Yeah, and you've got to look really, really carefully this morning to find the story that I found on page 2 of The Sun, because amongst everything else, they're all banging on about whether or not we should ban the use of mobile phone technology to the under 16s, or whether we should be, paying out more money to defend ourselves. But how about this for a story? More than 200 migrants arrived in small boats yesterday alone, right, during the third day in a row of channel crossings. And do you know how many have come since the beginning of January? Because I was quite shocked by this figure. 800 have come since the beginning of the year. And so we're already on course for probably, 1,500 to 2,000 in the first month of this year alone. The joke that is Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, has been the latest in a long line of Home Secretaries, and I include the Tories as well, Tories and Labour, who've failed to tackle this problem. It's extraordinary, isn't it?
It's a great comparison with Trump. Trump, again, had the same problem a year ago when he took office. The difference between our politicians and Western European politicians and the American president is one thing, and it's a backbone. That's it. That's the only difference. We've got the same problems. We can use the same methodology to solve it. We can do the same things. We can use the same strategy. It's just that our leaders haven't got a backbone to do what needs to be done. I mean, our channel stopped 3 Spanish armadas. It stopped Napoleon. It stopped Hitler. And now we can't stop rubber dinghies. That's how far we've fallen as a nation.
And we think that we can send a fighting force to Greenland. I mean, there are some people in this country who actually were predicting, incredibly, and many of them in the media, that there would be some kind of conflict between Europe and the United States of America. I mean, it's laughable, isn't it?
It is. There was an article last year about how many British soldiers are unfit, obese, on sickness, Our fighting force now can fit into a medium-sized football stadium.
Right.
We're not the force we used to be. We can handle most countries around the world. We're still a force. But when it comes to the big boys, when it comes to America, the world power, and we think we're going to send a couple of hundred soldiers to Greenland.
I know.
This is all we do in Western Europe. It's not just Keir Starmer, it's all the leaders in Western Europe. It's all virtue signaling. It's all about something needs to be done. I don't want to do what needs to be done, but
Yeah.
I need to do something. This is something. I'll do this.
Right. And I mean, so ridiculous is the state of our government now that we got Rachel Reeves going out to Davos today. She's going to be preaching to them about how we've got the most stable country in the world, which nobody's going to buy, right? And that we should all be grateful for how well the economy is going, even as the news came through today, this morning, that 270,000 fewer people are now working in payroll jobs than there were when Labour got in July of last year, right? And the hospitality figures are absolutely diving. You know, job opportunities for young people have disappeared altogether thanks to the cost of actually employing them. And Keir Starmer's not even sure if he's going to go to Davos because, of course, Nigel Farage is going to be out there and he's ahead of him in the queue to see Donald Trump. We just lost Nick there. We'll get him back in a moment. Nick Buckley talking a great deal of sense, of course, about Donald Trump. The digital clock is 2 minutes 42 seconds slow, says Swordfish. The analogue clock is slow too. Well, maybe your clock's fast. And actually, you just can't tell. Here's one from Simon, who's got a super chat, who says, we have not got any army or any air force anymore. A punk man says, we don't want to stop the boats. We pre-arranged with the French to escort them halfway across the channel. Yeah. And Roger says, Mike, we have sent our fighting force to Greenland, just one army officer. Absolutely extraordinary, isn't it? Lots of you are sending some really, really interesting tweets in as well. One here from Gudgy, who says, no more comedy news, please. Keep it real. Also, brighten up the set as it's a morning. We all need the light first thing. Looks like you're back on the graveyard shift. Well, I rather like the vibe that we've got here in the studio. Thank you very much indeed. And Andy says, on the subject of child safety online, more government overreach and people wanting to hand over parenting to the government because they can't be asked. Thousands are killed on the roads every year. Should we ban all vehicles? No, we put safety measures in place. This government is just dreadful. Absolutely right. And here's one from Alexander, who says, a box of tricks and a fridge of wine. Crack the champagne open when you hit 250,000 subs on YouTube. I don't know if we can do this now. Oh, we've got Nick back. Nick, sorry about that. Just lost you there for a moment. While I have got you back on, I know you've been sort of somebody who's campaigned quite a lot for families and for children and for that kind of thing. What do you make of this idea that the government's going to do yet another U-turn? Because Starmer apparently didn't want to do it, but now they're saying they do want to make it possible to ban under-16s from accessing social media. Do you think they can even do it?
First of all, you're right. It can't be done. The genie is out the bottle. It can't be done. But what they do need to do, there's two things there. First of all, I'm sick of the government trying to be parents, trying to parent our children. They have no right to be trying to parent our children.
Yeah.
What they should be doing, and I agree with, is they should be helping parents be better parents. So if the government, let's say they could create a switch that means your children can't access social media until you deem they're old enough. Then if they can create such a thing, then create it and give access to the button to parents. It's up to the parents to decide what's good for their children or not. Governments are there for help and advice, not to be taking over parental responsibility. They do it all the time now. Parents now don't even have to feed their children. Well, schools will feed your children now. That's part of the problem why we've got a single mother epidemic in the country, because, you know, they've realised the state will fund my children, the state will look after my children. So men will walk away from relationships, women will throw men out of relationships because the state becomes a parent.
Yes.
This is at the heart of many of our social problems.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I couldn't agree more with you, because realising that, you know, there is a need for a welfare state, realising there is a need for a safety net is a good thing, and it's a civilised thing for a civilised society. But what it shouldn't be is a way of life. What it shouldn't be is something that you lean on for your entire existence. And you don't ever have to worry about money. You know, this two-child benefit cap business now is going to mean that there's going to be more and more people on the receiving end of free money and fewer people who are able to give it to the government in tax, because, it just doesn't add up.
I think everybody wants a welfare system in this country.
Yeah.
We used to have real poverty 150 years ago in this country, and we've got over that now, which is fantastic. But the welfare system now has become, it used to be a safety net. It's now become a hammock.
Yeah.
It's become a destination of choice. People are aiming to get onto benefits as a way of life. And sometimes you can understand why they do it, because sometimes you earn more money on benefits than you do working. That's the first issue. The second issue, and this is what I always argue with people about, because I don't want to get rid of the welfare system. I just want a better one.
Yes.
If you're on welfare, it slowly destroys you. It destroys your self-confidence, your aspiration, your self-worth. You're nothing better than a beggar. Your children see how you raise them and see benefits as a way of life. So therefore you damage your own children. When you go out to work, you're a somebody, you're a taxpayer, you're a member of society, you contribute to society. It means you're a stakeholder. When you're just a beggar, then that destroys the English spirit. We used to rule the world, and now we've got over half the population now in the UK rely on benefits, some type of benefits.
Yeah.
That just can't be right.
No, it's absolutely wrong. You're totally correct. Nick, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Common sense personified. Nick Buckley, MBE. We'll get you back on as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Mike. Great show. Well done for setting it all up. Really enjoying it. I've sort of followed you around the dial. Quick one about Keir Starmer. I think he's looking for a new job and trying to be a world statesman. And we're all paying for the interview. Keep up the good work. Cheers for now. Mike from Morley. Bye-bye.
Delighted to say we're joined live in the studio this morning with the Daily Telegraph's Liam Halligan. Liam, very, very good morning to you.
Crikey, in your new studio.
It's the first time you've been in here.
I feel like I'm in an episode of Changing Rooms or something.
Well, listen, every time I come in the morning, Pooch has put something new in. We've got a wine fridge now. We've got a water cooler. We had a coffee machine
It's a
over
proper
there.
man cave.
It's a proper man cave. Any other suggestions welcome, by the way. But listen, great to see you. I just want to read you this, because this was this broke just as we started the show this morning, put out by Donald Trump around about 6:45 this morning. Shockingly, he says, our brilliant NATO ally, the United Kingdom, is currently planning to give away the island of Diego Garcia, the site of a vital US military base, to Mauritius, and to do so in capital letters for no reason whatsoever. There is no doubt that China and Russia have noticed this act of total weakness. These are international powers who only recognise strength, which is why the United States of America, under my leadership, is now, after only 1 year, respected like never before. The UK giving away extremely important land is an act of great stupidity and is another in a very long line of national security reasons why Greenland has to be acquired. I mean, that is a pretty big slap in the face to Keir Starmer, isn't it?
That's a rhetorical bazooka, isn't it? We've been hearing about Europe threatening to wield a trade bazooka, putting counter tariffs on the US. And also, it must be said, that's kind of contrary to what the Americans were saying when Labour first floated this idea of giving away the Chagos Island.
Right.
They seemed relatively relaxed about it, but now clearly they aren't. Look,
well, because now in the context of Greenland, suddenly you've got Keir Starmer coming out and saying the most ludicrous things like, well, Greenland must be the future of Greenland must be decided by the people of Greenland and by the people of the Kingdom of Denmark. But for Chagos, they don't get to decide on their own land, do they?
That does seem to be real hypocrisy there. Look, I think all this is coming to a head. There'll be the annual Gabfest in the Swiss mountains, which is Davos.
Yes.
Whereas rather than having, proper press conferences and conversations in Parliament, global leaders, seem to conduct diplomacy behind closed doors. Maybe there'll be some kind of, at least, progress there. But for now, at least, these are really strange times, Mike. I mean, the idea that Greenland is absolutely dominating geopolitics. It's like a sort of mad game of risk when everyone's on acid.
I said to somebody last night, I don't think I've had more than one conversation about Greenland in my life.
I mean, what's the capital of Greenland? It's the ultimate trivial pursuit. Oh, we were going to win, and then somebody asked us the capital of Greenland. But look, it is really strategically important. Greenland has at least 30 billion barrels of oil reserves. That's 4 times more than nearby Norway, which is already an energy superpower. Greenland has an awful lot of so-called rare earths, and possibly
minerals and all
it could
that.
become a place where you can process those rare earths. But above all, it's strategically very, very importantly located. As ice caps diminish up there in the Arctic. The idea that you can get ships through the Northeast Passage, the Northwest Passage, it totally changes the geography of the world. It totally upends geopolitics, talking about that game of risk. And Greenland is the gateway to that kind of little wormhole that gets you to the other side of the world in a much shorter amount of time, particularly when it comes to freight and military and naval vessels. And that is really, really important. And America wants a piece of that. Incredible story in the Telegraph that actually the person who has been really advising Trump on this over the years, why the US should have Greenland, is none other than the son of Estee Lauder, the cosmetics barons in New York. Yeah, Ronald Lauder, who was a mate of Donald Trump at Wharton Business School. Okay. Apparently, he's the guy who's been saying to him, Don, we've got to get hold of Greenland. It's the best thing we could possibly do for America. And it's an amazing
development, isn't it? Because as you say, I mean, nobody really ever thought about it. Nobody ever mentioned it. Nobody. I mean, I think again, one of those other Trivial Pursuit questions is, are there any mountains in Denmark? And the answer to which is no, but there are in Greenland, which is part of Denmark. So it's all very weird. But the thing that I find equally astonishing is the kind of media's reaction to it, because you've got the usual kind of anti-Trump brigade who are convinced that he wants to start World War III with Europe, which of course he doesn't. And meanwhile today, after a day yesterday where every single front page was absolutely chock-a-block with the perils of the Greenland situation, today it's all about Brooklyn Beckham. And they've all forgotten.
It's bread and circuses, isn't it?
I mean, they've all forgotten about Greenland in 24 hours. That's right. It's amazing.
The Beckhams have come to the rescue to totally divert us from what's actually happening. Look, I wrote a column in the Telegraph last week, my weekly economics agenda column, and I said the geopolitics that are really going to matter this year and going forward aren't Venezuela, aren't Iran, aren't Russia, Ukraine. They're all of those are massively important. It's actually China, Taiwan. The tensions between China and Taiwan have been cranking up enormously. Yeah, you can read President Xi's New Year's address in English in this, on the various Chinese newspapers, and it's really blood curdling when it comes to China's claims to the place that produces 90% of the world's advanced semiconductors, which are absolutely vital for basically any kind of economic growth these days, any kind of tech-related manufacturing, any kind of artificial intelligence. So I think that's going to be... I do think this Greenland stuff will calm down. I do think that in the end, Europe will do a deal with America when it comes to Greenland. I just think what Trump is doing now, in his own way, which is, of course, completely irresponsible and alarming in some senses, but actually very effective in another, he's focusing minds and telling the Europeans that actually, look, this is really, really important. And so I do think some kind of deal will be done without any shots fired. I'm certainly keeping my fingers crossed.
And there might be tariffs that are threatened. I mean, we know from last year when the tariffs were sort of put on, it looks as though 7% of British exports were down, or they were 7% down because of that. But again, the idea that Starmer doesn't seem to want to retaliate, doesn't seem to want to align himself with the Europeans because he's not really sure what to do. And after this message now about the Chagos Islands, he'll be running around like a blue-ass fly in Downing Street, wondering what to do.
I think he will, and I think this will certainly split the Labour Party, as so many other things do. You'll get a lot of armchair warriors saying you've got to condemn him, etc., etc. On the other hand, even Starmer will realise that it's the US, it's our major strategic ally, it's our biggest single country trading partner. By the way, he can't go in too hard. So let's see what happens on Greenland. It is important to say that there is some rational explanation for why the US would want to certainly oversee what goes on in Greenland, even if there's not some complete transfer of power, like it oversees what goes on in lots of countries, like it has, massive bases in Japan, for instance, massive bases in the Philippines.
Garcia, which is why
there are US bases all over the world, and maybe what will end up happening here is that there's just an increase in the number of US bases on Greenland, so the Americans can monitor what's going on in the run-up to the Northwest Passage there, so they can have some kind of mining rights over the rare earths there, possibly the oil and gas.
Indeed. Let's talk about matters closer to home. Rachel Reeves off to Davos today. She's in the papers talking about how Britain is now the most stable country, the home of stability, she's calling it, saying it's the best place in the world to invest. She claims it's the home of stability, talent and capital. Well, the figures that have come out today on payroll jobs would suggest otherwise.
Indeed. Look, there is still a lot. The UK does still have a lot going for it. We still have a very talented labour force. We are still, the third biggest destination for foreign direct investment in the world. We still command the lion's share of foreign direct investment coming into Western Europe. On the other hand, the economy is not looking too clever at all. No. Unemployment has gone up from 4.2 to 5.1%.
And that's a bit of a magic number, isn't it? Over 5.
It is. Since the summer of 2024, when Labour came in, actually the definition of unemployment keeps getting manipulated. All governments do it to try and keep it as low as possible. If you look at the HMRC numbers, which are more reliable on payroll positions, this is when someone else gives you a job rather than you creating a job for yourself by being self-employed. Right. Payroll positions, Mike, are down over 150,000 over the last year, down 80,000 over the last 2 months.
Wow.
And what's happening is that very high increases in the minimum wage have come in, particularly for younger people. Services and hospitality, retail, which are employment intensive, they're getting hammered with higher business rates, with higher taxation. You're getting employers don't want to take people on because you've got those higher employer national insurance charges, which have been around since April 2025. We've talked about this a lot over recent weeks and months. But the idea that the UK is this place of incredible stability, I'm sorry, when we have the highest borrowing costs in the G7, that is international capital markets charge the UK more to borrow than any other major Western economy because our fiscal situation looks precarious. We're spending more than we're raising in tax each month. Right. And so we're borrowing
and that number is diminishing.
20 billion quid a month.
Yes.
And a lot of the money that we're borrowing is being spent on interest on the debt, which isn't sustainable.
No, of course. And with every month that passes, more people who pay tax are leaving the country to be replaced by more people coming into the country who are on benefits or who are not certainly contributing. And according to figures now released today, payroll jobs down 217,000 since Labour took office in July of 24. 121,000 jobs, as you say, lost in just the last 4 months. The data speaks for itself. Jamie Jenkins has said this to us. Labour's national insurance hikes have made hiring more expensive and it is costing jobs. And
particularly for young people, Mike. A lot of young people listen to this, a lot of parents looking at their kids. Those little jobs, that students would get, that young people would get when they leave school, the first rung on the employment ladder, retail and hospitality, they're just not about anymore because the companies can't afford to take people on. You used to be able to employ somebody for 20 hours a week, Mike, without paying employer national insurance.
Yes.
With Labour lowering the threshold, you can only employ someone for 8 hours a week on minimum wage without paying employer national insurance. And that makes a huge difference.
It does. We've got a voice note, I think, from Mike from Morley, who wants to say something to you, Liam.
From Morley. Bye-bye.
Is that it? Mike from Morley. Let's have a listen.
Good morning, Mike. It's Mike from Morley again. Just a correction to your show. We're not giving away the Chagos Islands. We're paying millions and millions and millions for somebody to take them away. Please correct that newsflash. Thank you very much, and the show is brilliant.
Mike from Morley wants to correct me on the Chagos Islands. We're not giving them away. We're actually paying. He's absolutely right, Mike. Thank you for correcting me. We're paying somebody to take them off our hands.
It's like an old fridge or something in your front garden.
And I think Nigel Farage put a figure on it of about something like 56 billion over the course of time, which of course Keir Starmer is disputing. But I wonder now whether, and I was talking to somebody actually last night, I was out and about at a leaving do for somebody who's also leaving the country and going to work in Washington DC. And it turns out that there is a real belief now, certainly from those who have been lobbying on behalf of the Chagos Islanders and people in the House of Lords like Ross Kempsell, who's been very good on it as well, that there is a sort of, light at the end of the tunnel, that there may well be reason now for Keir Starmer to hesitate with the deal and to actually, perhaps reverse it. And now with Donald Trump saying this, that could be the final kind of nail in the coffin of the deal.
I've never really understood this Chagos Islands thing. I've tried to understand it.
Yeah.
Is it a bunch of lefty Labour lawyers wanting to do a kind of, colonial reversal of
Well,
some kind, so they can present themselves as some kind of Wilberforces of the modern era.
Well, absolutely, because when you see who's been involved, you've got Lord Hermer, who is, the friend of anybody who wants reparations historically from the days of slavery. You've got David Lammy was involved in it. Jonathan Pole, who of course was Tony Blair's guy that was very instrumental in giving away pretty much anything he could get his hands on, including Hong Kong, I think. So yeah, absolutely, that would seem to be the reason, because there doesn't seem to be any other reason. The Chagossians don't want it to be given away to Mauritius. No. They wish to remain British. They want to remain under the sort of protectorate of the British government. They haven't been asked what they want. And the idea that we're actually paying, it's like somebody coming to buy a car from you, and you pay them to take it away. And you go, I've got this old Ford Escort, here's 12,000 quid, do you mind driving it off? What are you doing? It makes no sense.
It does seem magical thinking, and I don't really get it. But look, this is a major year of geopolitics. It's the geopolitics, stupid, if you like, that are going to dominate. And stock markets, equity markets, they just keep going up all the time. There seems to be a lot of hype. There's a lot of hype linked to what AI can do. AI-related stocks now make up 50% of the S&P 500, which is the main stock index in America.
Is that a bit like what was the dot-com revolution?
I think it's a lot like the dot. That was, again, my column at the weekend for the Telegraph. That was the parallel that I made. I won't get into cyclically adjusted Case-Shiller indices on the Mike Graham show because everyone's head might blow off. But let's just say the top stock market across the Western world, it looks really toppy.
Yes.
What do I mean by that? It means that firms, the valuations that traders are putting on firms are much higher than you'd expect if you look at the money that the firms are actually generating in revenue and profit. We're up at levels like just before the dot-com collapse in terms of toppiness.
I always take the view that by the time I've found out that something's a good thing to get into, it's already too late. So I tend not to do it.
Well, I would say the stock market's screaming red. I'd say a lot of the valuation in the stock market, a lot of the reason it keeps going up is because of the notion that AI is going to completely change the world. Look, AI is going to change the world, but it doesn't mean that instantly all these firms that are trading at ridiculously high multiples, very, very expensive share prices, are going to generate lots and lots of revenue. They're not. A lot of them are going to fail. But I think there's just an incentive for financiers and city folk to just keep talking these things up. Whereas meanwhile, you've got this very, very uncertain outlook when it comes to geopolitics. Not least, we've still got the biggest war going on in Europe since in over 70 years. There's no sign of that stopping anytime soon. Iran, Venezuela and Russia between them control over 50% of the world's oil supplies, and a similar figure when it comes to gas. So you've got all these geopolitical uncertainties swirling around. And as I said, I think the really big geopolitical uncertainty this year, and particularly as we go into 2027, which is the 100th anniversary of the People's Liberation Army, that's the year that President Xi has told his military bosses to be ready to take Taiwan, which China sees as part of China, the so-called One China policy. As we approach 2027, I do think the heat between America and China when it comes to Taiwan is really going to crank up. And there's lots of signs now, without trying to sound alarmist, that is happening in terms of air incursions from the Chinese over Taiwan, in terms of messing with underwater cables to the island of Taiwan. Taiwan imports 90% of its energy through a couple of LNG, liquefied natural gas terminals. The Chinese, over the new year, Mike, barely noticed in the West, did the biggest ever war game exercise they've ever done on Taiwan. And it was specifically an exercise to practice blockading Taiwan, blockading those energy supplies. And Taiwan isn't just any other country, as I said. It is where we get 90% of our advanced semiconductors around the world, which are absolutely vital now, as vital in some senses as oil and gas when it comes to generating growth, generating economic activity.
Wow. And just in time for that, there'll be, of course, the building of the new Chinese embassy smack bang in the middle of London, where they'll be able to control not just the city, but Canary Wharf and everything else. So, I mean, you know, it's a very good point you make, and it's quite worrying, actually. We've got much more to do. Loads of you commenting, and we'll read out some of your comments as well. Don't forget, you can go and vote on our online poll on the YouTube chat about who is the cheesiest Briton. We've got Gary Lineker, we've got Anton Deck, we've got Ed Davey, and one final other one. Who was the final one? Can't remember. It's Graham Norton, who most of you don't seem to think is particularly cheesy at all. Liam, brilliant to see you. Thank you very much indeed.
Good luck with your enterprise.
Thank you very much indeed. I mean, we're cooking on gas. Talking of liquid gas, but we have got news coming up with Edward Hughes, who's back from his holidays, and we'll be back with Plank of the Day after this.
Morning, Mike. Travelling Boz here. Travelled over from that other talk station, the talk station you were on, over to you. Much better now. You speak your mind. I'll tell you what would be good. If you and Mike Parry got together, that'd be interesting. And go to that bloke's pub, the bloke who threw out Starmer, sit there and have a good chat with him. And this is why the pub industry is getting sold down the river. Have a good show. Good man.
Hounds of Love, Kate Bush. Says Hobo Star. Yeah, so many albums to talk about. Before we move to our next guest, before we talk about what is going on at the heart of this government and why we should all absolutely shun Keir Starmer and all of his mates if they ever want to go down the pub with you. Let's talk about Plank of the Day, because there is only one today. So far this week, we've had Prince Harry, we've had Brooklyn Beckham, we've had Nepo babies all over the place. Today, we haven't got so much of a Nepo baby as just a complete and utter plank. Let's go with Plank of the Day.
Hello, it's Plank of the Day time.
Now, I don't know whether you saw Emmanuel Macron yesterday, but he stood up to his full height of 3'9.5", and was wearing a pair of sunglasses, as if he was auditioning for a part in the next movie with Tom Cruise, you know, Top Gun, or in his case, a top twat. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. That's a bad word. Why is he wearing sunglasses? The first thought we had, and Charlotte, our producer who sets up an awful lot of the show guests and does a lot of the graphics for us as well, and is an essential part of our team, she said, has he been beaten up by his husband again? And I mean, I can't say whether he has a husband. I can say that his wife, Emmanuel Macron, Mrs. Emmanuel Macron, has won a lawsuit recently in which she was accused of being a bloke, and a judge in France made a load of people in America and a load of people who had written about it online to say that they had to pay her a bucket load of money because she's clearly not a bloke. I have no idea whether she's a bloke or not, and it doesn't really interest me. I don't think she is a bloke. I think Emmanuel Macron's wife is just a bit of a weird woman. Because let's face it, Emmanuel Macron, who's the president of France, went out with her when she was his tutor. Now, we've all been there, right? As a teenage boy of 15 or 16, I used to think it was quite cool to fancy your teacher. But you don't marry them, do you? I mean, you know, once you start going out with girls your own age, once you start taking them out to the pub, going to the cinema, you know, taking them home to their parents and introducing yourself to them and trying to make out that you've got honourable intentions while all the time you're trying to have very dishonourable intentions. What you don't do is go, I'll tell you what, you're 20 years older than me and a grown woman with a job and a house and a car and possibly a husband. Let's have an affair. No, you just don't do that. Emmanuel Macron is not only a plank for doing that, but he's also a plank for trying to sort of rattle the sabre about Donald Trump, because one of the things that he did yesterday was he tried to get all sort of hard. And one of the things that he's done in recent days is to show himself walking around the sort of military complex. He did a video the other day of him walking into a group of men who were clearly military men wearing uniforms, and behind him, as he sort of emerged out of this hangar, was what can only be described as a Mirage jet, which is, of course, one of the very, very well-produced and very cleverly put together fighter jets that the French have. They used them, of course, during the Falklands War. They gave them to Argentina, and Argentina used to send Exocet missiles from these planes because they bought them from France, which wasn't very friendly in France, really, to be honest. But anyway, the point is, at the end of the day, Emmanuel Macron is not in any way, shape or form capable of taking on the United States of America. France is not in any way, shape or form capable of taking on the United States of America. You might remember when the American government, I think it was under, was it possibly under Ronald Reagan or George Bush, when they decided to bomb Tripoli and bomb Libya and to remove Colonel Gaddafi. It might have been Clinton, actually. The French said, you can't fly over our airspace. So RAF Lakenheath, which is where the American jets took off from, had to fly down the coast of France and then sort of make a left somewhere over Spain, which made their journey slightly longer because they couldn't fly over French airspace because the French said, we don't want to be any part of bombing Libya. So they're not really great allies of NATO at all. And basically what Macron has said about Donald Trump is that we should not be bullied by people who are trying to be in charge of us. And that really, to me, shows you that France is not a team player. The French are not team players. The French could do all sorts of things for us if they wanted to. For example, they could stop the boats from leaving the French shores, right? Couldn't they? Emmanuel Macron could order the French gendarmerie to puncture every single dinghy as soon as it gets blown up. They could puncture every single dinghy as it was put onto the beach. They could take all of the people out of dinghies as soon as they got in them, in French waters, while they're in the shallows, and arrest them all. They could do all of that. They don't do it. They don't do it because they don't want to, because they don't care about leaving migrants to go to Britain because they want them to leave. They don't want to stay in France because nobody wants them there. But Emmanuel Macron is the very furthest away person, I think, who should be calling Donald Trump out for whatever it is that he thinks is new colonialism, right? Do we have a clip of Macron, or do we have a picture of him with the sunglasses on? Oh, we've got a picture of Trump talking to him. Oh, let's have Trump talking to him. Let's go.
Yeah, right behind.
Thank you, Mr. President. How would you characterize your relationship with Emmanuel Macron and Keir Starmer right now? And have you spoken to them since your Truth Social post last
No, I
night?
haven't, but I think I get along very well with them. I mean, they always treat me well. They get a little bit rough when they're, when I'm not around. But when I'm around, they treat me very nicely. And, I like both of them. They're both liberal. They've got to straighten out their countries. You can't, London is having a lot of problems. And if you look at Paris, got a lot of problems. They have two problems, immigration and energy.
Donald Trump there talking last night at the inaugural press conference in which he was celebrating 1 year in office because basically he got in for his second term a year ago. Here's what Emmanuel Macron said. He called for the rejection of the US's new colonialism. He led calls for the European Union to use its toughest economic response to Trump's threat of tariffs. He says we're shifting towards a world without rules, where international rule is trampled underfoot and where the only law that seems to matter is that of the strongest. The other thing that Emmanuel Macron, of course, has done is that private texts between him and Donald Trump have been released, where Macron basically asked him if he would go out for dinner with him in Paris after they meet in Davos later on today. Trump's going to Davos later on today. Keir Starmer's not going to Davos, by the way, mainly because he doesn't want to be overshadowed by Nigel Farage, who is going to Davos and who is going to speak to Donald Trump and who is going to have an audience with the President of the United States of America, as if he was, in fact, the deputy or the de facto Prime Minister of this country, which is indeed what he should be. Keir Starmer's not a Prime Minister. Keir Starmer's not a leader. I wouldn't put him in charge of a sausage shop, because he wouldn't know the difference between sausages and hostages, for a start. But there we are. So, plank of the day, Emmanuel Macron. Thank you very much indeed. Let's have the little...
Hello, it's Plank of the Day time.
Now, there we are. See, that is the wonder of the way that we can now do things, right? Let's talk now, though, to Sharon Davis, a woman who I described earlier as a magnificent sporting superstar, of course, from her days as a swimmer, but now also a magnificent supporter of women's rights and a campaigner, in fact, over the course of the last couple of years. Sharon, great to see you. Welcome to the Mike Graham Show.
Good morning, Mike. Nice to see you. What a busy day. Well, it's always a busy day in politics, isn't it, the world at the moment?
Well, it doesn't seem to ever be quiet anymore, does it? I mean, people used to say to me when I was at Talk, when was the last time you had a quiet week? And I was like, well, we haven't had one. And since we started this show 2 weeks ago, it's just been non-stop, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. I love the fact you've got your Union Jack, and it's right near my Union Jack. So look at that.
Yes, there's a bit of sort of coercion going on there. Let's talk about what happened over the last couple of days, because I mean you've obviously been following this case massively, and you know it's an ongoing fight, isn't it, for women like yourself? I think you're winning. I mean, it seems to me that there's more and more good decisions being made than there are bad ones. But tell us about why you're celebrating today.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's the NHS is our biggest problem here. You know, we're looking at the Darlington nurses who obviously won their case, which was fantastic. This is all about forcing, women to have to get undressed in the presence of men. And, we've also got the Andy Peggy case, which we partially won, but that's now on appeal. And we've got another case which will actually be coming up tomorrow, which is Jennifer Melley, who, was a nurse of 12 years. She was being called the N-word by a convicted paedophile who'd been brought in from prison. She referred to him as Mr. when speaking to the doctor, which is extremely relevant, right? Because this person is biologically male, and now she's been suspended from her job. The NHS is in an absolute mess with regards to this and applying the equality.
She's just muted.
Could sort this out by releasing, the guidance, which she's been sat on now for 3 months. There is absolutely no excuse for this whatsoever. The law was made very, very clear last April, that in the Equality Act, sex is biological sex, and women deserve protection in their private spaces, in their sports, in their shortlists, in anywhere where sex is relevant, and it's just not being applied.
No. And one of the things that we've talked about many times before is that this was all meant to have been sorted out, was it not, by the Supreme Court ruling, which even Keir Starmer actually accepted, to say that, you can only be a woman in law if you were born a biological woman. So how is the NHS and some other ordinary organisations and some other public organisations able to kind of disobey the law effectively?
Yeah, well, I mean, partly because this is down to Stonewall, to be very honest. They misrepresented the law for many, many years. And I know this from sport because I know exactly what they were telling sport. And I'm sure this is what they were telling business. I'm sure this is what they were telling, the NHS. And in certain organisations like the NSS, where, or the civil service, where we've got very, very strong activist groups, they've put this law in place which doesn't exist. They've removed the rights of women, dignity, to fair sport, to privacy. I mean, what an insane world are we living in where women are told, nurses are told that you have to get undressed in front of any male who decides that he's going to identify as a female. I mean, there's just no sense to this policy whatsoever. There is no reason why we can't create third spaces. It's not beyond the wit of man to actually do that. But actually what's more important really is these people are still a subset of males. So therefore we need to make male space safe for non-conforming males, because that's what they still are, non-conforming males. And I will never understand how we've got to this place and how it is so difficult for women to grapple back and get the law applied. And the only way that we are getting the law applied at the moment is for all these wonderful women, to take on 2 and 3 year battles at huge expense, which is being crowdfunded, whilst people like the NHS are using taxpayers' money to fight them to not apply the law. And it's an insane position.
It is. And also, for anyone who's ever had difficulties at work, even if it's something small and, you come in and every morning there's somebody who doesn't get on with you and there's people kind of, looking at you funny and, it's very difficult to be in a workplace, albeit a small one, never mind a big one like a hospital or an NHS clinic. It's really stressful for people. And for these Darlington nurses, it must have been dreadful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as we know from said in court, a couple of those nurses had extreme abuse histories, and they had to retell that history, the things that they had to go through, the trauma, and the fact that they had a male voice in their changing rooms. They didn't know who that male voice belonged to. Then when they found out who that male voice was, he was standing there watching them. Then he was asking them why they weren't getting changed. One of the ladies ended up having to remove herself. Another one was due to have a gynecological operation. And the NHS deliberately moved this trans-identifying male onto the team that were involved in this operation. I mean, it was almost like a form of persecution, which is actually what they've been found guilty of. They've been found guilty of harassment. So I hope they are made to pay. But it really is the job of this government, Bridget Phillipson, Keir Starmer and Wes Streeting, who's supposed to be in charge of the NHS, to sort this out.
Yes. I mean, the trouble with this government is that they're not very open, one, and they're also quite good at misleading people, and three, they rather like to say things which aren't true. I mean, only at the weekend, Keir Starmer put out a tweet saying, we've had the biggest drop in waiting lists for the NHS in 2 years. Something like 67,000 people have fallen off the list. Well, as I found out, as I put a tweet out, they haven't fallen off the list. They've either died or they've gone private. It's not a question of reducing the numbers. They're not getting more efficient. If anything, they're spending too much time on stuff like this and about trans rights than they are on actually fixing people's health.
I think I was reading something in the Sunday papers yesterday about us being second to bottom with regards to cancer diagnosis and support and help. I mean, yes, our NHS is in a total mess. The difficulty is it's really not fit for purpose anymore.
No.
It was fit for purpose after the Second World War, something we can be extremely proud of, the fact that we created the NHS. But if you look at services across the world, there isn't anything like the NHS anywhere else, because ultimately it's, in a big country, it's impossible to actually finance. So I think we have to potentially look at, places like France. How does their system work? How do they make it work? It's a bottomless pit. We also aren't running it very efficiently, as we know, and Unison, who is supposed to be the nurses' union, didn't even stand by their nurses.
And that is the problem, isn't it?
And that's heartbreaking, right? That's 70% of the people that pay into Unison, I think, are females, and they're not protecting females. Right. If I was a nurse, I would not be giving them any money. I really wouldn't. I would be going elsewhere.
But is that because the union is ideologically captured, and the union, at the end of the day, no matter what the law says, will always believe that trans rights are more important than women's rights?
Yeah, absolutely. And why would you pay into that if you're a woman? Why are you going to pay into the fact that they're going to allow any man that identifies as a female into your changing space?
Yeah.
It's just extraordinary. I mean, we know that women, will purposely walk underneath lights. I know in sport that women start running in winter when it gets dark.
Yeah.
People carry keys. My daughter works at a charity which people can call, when they leave work or when they leave an event in the evening to make sure that someone knows that they left and that they arrived. Women have learned to do that. It's just something that's innate and that we grow up with. No woman wants to be trapped in a confined space where they're going to go to the bathroom with some, 6'4" person who's wearing high heels and identifying as a female. It's scary, so we're throwing all of the things that women have learned to do to protect us under the bus. And the statistics will show us that trans-identifying males are no less likely to commit crimes of the sexual nature than men. So if we created separate changing rooms and separate toilets because of those reasons to protect females, then why would we allow a group of men in there where the statistics are no different?
No, exactly. And looking at your Twitter feed, Sharon, I mean, there's lots of parts of the country and other parts of Wales, probably Scotland, of course, as well, where this is all still going on, so unless it's highlighted by a particular, uprising or by a particular lawyer or by you, nobody gets to know this is going on.
Yeah, unless we have court cases, unless there's some brave women that can come forward. But I mean, almost the process is the punishment. And so that's why an awful lot of women just put up with it. Right. And in sport, what we find is that people just give up. So instead of women, going and facing males in sport, they just stop going. Right. If they think there's going to be a male in their changing room, they just stop going to their fitness class. So this is not a policy of inclusion. This is the absolute opposite. It's a policy of exclusion of women in women's spaces.
And while there's been some movement in a good way in sort of elite level sport, I know one of the things that you always say is that in the lower levels, the lower echelons, like in schools and colleges and places where it's not elite level, but it's still, serious level, that's not the case.
Yeah, well, it's serious for everyone that plays sport, isn't it? Just maybe because you're not the world's best doesn't mean to say when you go and have a game of sport that you don't want to win. And also, where does the elite come from if it doesn't, come from the grassroots? So if we destroy the grassroots, we're not going to get the elite. So what an awful lot of these cowardly CEOs have done is protect the elite, which is 1%, by the way, a tiny, tiny proportion, and they've just turned around and thrown the rest of it under the bus. Now, what I don't get is how can you say this woman here is good enough, so she's worthy of fair sport, and this woman over here is not good enough, so therefore she's not worthy of fair sport? I mean, that doesn't make any sense when it comes to sex discrimination law. So that's definitely something that myself and Tracy Edwards, we created the Women's Sports Union a couple of months ago. That is on our sort of projects this year, is to, you know, say to the CEOs, you can't do this. You're also breaking the law with regards to public liability insurance, you know. So there are lots of ways and lots of plans that we've got to try and make sure that sport is returned to all females at all levels. I think I've told you this before, but one of the most heartbreaking stories that I was told was about an 11-year-old who came home and said to her mum, today the headmaster had created a co-ed sports day. You know, there were no women, no boys and girls. It was just one race because there was an 8-year-old boy that was identifying as a girl. And so the headmaster decided it was inclusive to create one race for everybody. And not a single little girl won a race that day. And so this little girl said to her mum, what's the point? And that's what we're telling our little girls at the moment. You know, you're just not worthy. And that's a terrible message.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, in terms of the things that are being done which are unlawful, I mean, looking at a piece in Unheard about the Darlington NHS Foundation Trust, the judgment found that County Durham and Darlington NHS Foundation had behaved unlawfully in failing to address the nurses' concerns, right? But, you know, what's the punishment for that? Is there any punishment?
Yeah, and as we know, no one seems to take responsibility, whether you're a policeman in the Midlands or whether you're head of, you know, you're trusted at Fife with the Sandy Peggy case. These people are walking away with their pensions. And that is what's extremely wrong at the moment in society. There's no responsibility for people making bad decisions.
Yeah. And that is a dreadful state of affairs. And what reaction do you get from the Labour sort of apparatchiks that you talk to, if you talk to anyone in Cabinet? You know, because I always get the sense from Labour that, you know, they're offering a bit of lip service, you know, like Keir Starmer was sort of talking through gritted teeth when he finally admitted that, you know, a woman can only be a woman if the Supreme Court tells you it's a woman and that it has to be a biological woman. But you know that in his heart of hearts, he doesn't really believe that, because you know that he's got people behind him, you know, saying that he's a disgrace for admitting that, and that what about trans rights and all the rest of it. So, I mean, do you have any faith, really, I suppose is the question, in this government doing away with all of this nonsense once and for all?
It's such a good question, Mike. To be honest with you, no, I don't. I think that they are scared of their backbenchers. There is a very, very loud activist group of backbenchers in the Labour Party who, you know, whether that's talking about welfare cuts or whether that's talking about LGBT rights, or, you know, they're just running scared of them. So they're not being able to apply the law as they should be able to do. I mean, I speak to the lovely Rosie Duffield quite often, who's obviously ex-Labour, you know, and now independent because she stood up for women's rights. Still never been apologised to, you know, ever. And she was, you know, taken out of the Labour Party and sort of put in the naughty corner. Yeah, I'm the most disappointed in women as well in Labour. You know, when they say they're supposed to be for the working man and women, they're actually working against the working man and women at the moment. The people, you know, who really need them to stand up and fight for them, as well as obviously small businesses and farmers, you know, and all the rest of us who feel incredibly let down. I mean, tomorrow, funnily enough, I go into the House of Lords, so that's I start work tomorrow.
Of course. I'd completely forgotten about that. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you very much. It's all a little bit surreal at the moment. It's going to be a very big learning curve, but hopefully it just means that I can, you know, help even more and put even more pressure and sort of bring the spotlight even more on the people that are not doing their job.
And so does this mean that's the day that you get to be welcomed in and you go through that whole process, you get the ermine put on your shoulders and all of that? That's going to be quite an exciting day.
That happens tomorrow, yes. And I get a little tea party afterwards. My family and friends are able to come in and watch, and then I go to work straight away. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, the great thing about the House of Lords, and I know that there are plenty of people out there who think it doesn't do the job that it should. I actually think the House of Lords now is more important than ever, because when you've got the government of the day with such a big majority trying to do things that the majority of people in this country don't want them to do. I mean, look at all the U-turns. I mean, we've got a story this morning saying £8.2 billion has cost us as the taxpayers because of all the U-turns they've made. And you guys now in the House of Lords will have an even more important role to play, I think, in stopping them from doing anything ridiculous.
Yeah, take the euthanasia bill. You know, it was put together really, really badly, and it's the House of Lords that had tried to form it into some sort of cohesive bill that's safe, and it's still not really safe.
Yeah.
You know, and if the House of Lords hadn't been there, we would have had one absolutely horrendous, dangerous, you know, new law. So I think people need to understand what the House of Lords does, really. It tries to take bad laws that come from the House of Commons, and there's lots of those that are coming out of the House of Commons at the moment, and they try to manipulate it, change it, repair it, put, you know, safeguards in there, really, and then send it back to the House of Commons to sort of, you know, rubber stamp. So Yes, I think you're absolutely right. I think at the moment the House of Lords is the only thing that's often standing between disaster and and some better policies.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, listen, have a brilliant day tomorrow, because that's really that is something to celebrate. Honestly, Sharon Davis in the House of Lords. It shows you that not everything's gone wrong with this country, because finally.
And can I say that's down to Kemi?
Yes.
That's down to Kemi. And the reason I said yes is because it was Kemi that asked me, and I do have great faith in her. You know, during all the years before when they were in the government, I was having lots of conversations with her, and she was trying so hard to get things through.
Yeah.
And you know, it was the Conservative government in lots of places that were stopping her. But now that she's in charge, hopefully things will be different. So I do have faith in her.
Okay. And what do we call you now? Baroness Sharon?
Yeah. I'm Baroness Davies of Devonport. And the reason I chose that was because I was born in Devonport.
Right.
My family have been Navy for goodness knows how many years. And I thought that it kept my feet firmly on the ground to be, you know, associated with the services that I'm extremely proud of. So.
That's brilliant. Baroness Davies of Devonport has a lovely ring to it. Brilliant to see you. Thank you so much for talking to us, Sharon. Common sense.
Welcome.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you, Sharon Davis. Baron Davis of Devonport. What a brilliant idea that is. Well done. Yeah, we're going to have a round of applause. Thank you. Sensible, one of the most sensible women in Britain. And like I say, for those of you who want to do away with the House of Lords, she's the very good reason why we shouldn't be doing that right now. Because you know what old Keith Stalin would love to do is to do away with the House of Lords so that he wouldn't have anybody stopping him from getting on with ruining this country and wrecking it from John O'Groats to Land's End. So Baroness Davis of Devonport has got my vote. And of course...
Hi, Mike. Wendy from Texas here. I'm glad to have you back, and you might hear my parrot in the background. I'm calling about Greenland and the EU's arrogance and hubris and selfishness. Remember, just a couple weeks ago, the entire EU and Starmer were saying, oh, Russia's a huge invasion threat. Russia, 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 Russia. Now that the U.S. is trying to take strides to curtail that huge threat, look what they're doing. They're choosing to bow up to the U.S. It's ridiculous.
I don't get people in my ear going, shut up, what are you doing? It's supposed to be a news show. Yeah, well, we can do anything we like. And now, to prove it, we're going to talk to Rod Humphreys, a landlord in Bath, of a pub where you might remember this happened. Can we do that? Yeah. Let's play it.
That man is not allowed in my pub. No, Lord. I'm not going to physically hurt him. That man... Oi! That's assault. I am not bothering you. I am not bothering him. That man is not allowed in my pub. Get out of my pub. Go on. Get out of my pub. Thank you.
Bring David Cameron back.
Wow. That is iconic. Morning, Rod. Brilliant. I mean, you will be forever emblazoned in my brain for what can only be described as what everybody. It's literally what everybody wanted to do at that moment, and everybody watched it and went, "This is brilliant." Talk us through it, because I've never spoken to you about this, and you know it happened a while ago, obviously during the run up to the election in 2024. Tell us how it all kind of unfolded. Did you know he was coming? Did they just show up?
No. So someone had said that somebody from the Labour Party was coming. And I said, well, I'm going to give them a piece of my mind because they've really, really failed us.
Yeah.
And then it turned out to be him. So he got a piece of my mind. And that was pretty much it.
And so were you sort of standing there waiting to see who was going to show up, and then suddenly you saw him?
Yeah. That's right. And I just had the time to go and print some of the data that I had to hand, showing basically how much the whole thing was a lie. And as you probably know, I was a Labour voter basically all my life. I come from a fairly leftish sort of family. And I felt like if there's anybody that should have been challenging the narrative and effectively standing up for the people who were getting hurt, which I was seeing on a daily basis, it should have been the leader of the Labour Party. And the fact that he hadn't, and had, if anything, worked to make everything worse. He was calling for more lockdowns, more repression, more tyranny, effectively, more damage, made me extremely angry, as you can tell.
Right. And also, I thought what was really awful was the way that these kind of bully boys who accompany him tried to sort of lock you out of your own premises,
I know.
trying to make you, sort of kowtow to their... And also, we remember those terrible days with all these people wearing masks.
I know.
As if that made any bleeding difference, which of course it didn't. How did you... you did very well not to actually be done for assault, because, if it was me, I think I'd have been punching people.
Well, I suppose, but of course it was his bodyguard that manhandled me. It was my premises. I'd explained to him who I was. I'd introduced myself as the landlord. And then I think his people tried to get him out of my way, the annoying person on the street, without realising, took him in, and obviously then I went off pop.
Right. And, it looked like it was a very awkward moment for Keir Starmer, but you absolutely held your own. And how long before they kind of literally got the message and just wandered away? And did they say anything to you when the cameras disappeared?
No, but it did very quickly all go completely mental.
Yeah.
So I was told afterwards, I don't know if this is true, you work in the media, you'll probably have better insight than me. But I was told that what happened is it went out so fast because it was kind of visually interesting and dramatic, and because the press pack were there, it got out before they could squash it. And then it became, the mad thing for a little while.
Yeah.
And my life went mental. The phone started ringing, and there were people from, the BBC and everywhere wanting to talk to me because I was the news of the day.
Right.
And obviously, and then people started coming to talk to me, and the phone just never stopped ringing.
Right.
It was amazing.
Did you get some business out of it? Would be the main question.
So we got 350 orders on our wed shop within 24 hours,
wow.
Which was amazing. And yes, the pub filled up with people wanting to talk about it, wanting to talk to me, and. The big lesson for me was, up to that point, I had been the lone nut job, the one idiot, insane person who was saying, hang on, stop this, everybody. This is a lie. This doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Don't do this. This is doing damage. And everybody around me was saying, shut up. It's fine. Go along. And I wouldn't. I was fighting it tooth and claw.
Yeah.
And then when this happened, I suddenly discovered I wasn't alone. That there were thousands upon thousands of other people who saw it the same way as me.
Yeah.
And up to that point, I literally hadn't known that. I just thought that I was the only insane or sane person in the world. But actually, it turned out there were thousands of us who knew it was a lie, felt the injustice of it, felt the damage happening, and they all coalesced around me for a bit because of that incident, which was great.
Absolutely.
It was amazing.
And look at what's happened since. The hospitality business has been completely and utterly gutted by Rachel Thieves, as we like to call her, Richard III. She's put national insurance up. She's putting alcohol duty up. You're going to be having to charge more money for a pint of Guinness. I think it's going up 4p in February. You're going to have to charge more money for a glass of wine. They're putting your minimum wage up, so that if you are employing any kind of young kids to work behind the bar, it's difficult for you. What would be your message to that stupid woman who's currently in Davos pretending that she's an economist?
Well, so I suspect that she's not done any real work, and that if she lived down at our level, if you like, she would perhaps understand the damage she's doing. I don't know if she knows, and I don't know if she cares. The thing for me, all the details of it are horrible, but behind it is the feeling that they hate us. They don't value us. They don't care about us. They're not. It feels simply like treachery to me. This is the fabric, pubs and everything. It's the fabric of the country, and they apparently hold neither our culture nor us, physically us, in any value. That's the feeling. And my feeling is the trend is only continuing.
Yeah.
It's horrible, actually. It's horrible.
It is. And in terms of your own sort of profitability over the course of the last year since that incident happened with Keir Starmer, without wishing to give away too much of your own personal kind of, financial situation, how difficult is it now to run a pub in this country?
it's actually felt like being engaged in a war since COVID, basically. Between between the repressions that brought with it, and the change of attitude. I don't know if you noticed, for example, in the queue to pick up the school kids, you'll see people stand apart. So there's been a dividing line happened around: are we comfortable being together? Are we? What's polite? So a pub fundamentally is a place where people are together, have a beer or a cup of coffee or whatever, and exchange germs and ideas. It's a mixing place, and it's also a place where we go to be together, but also to celebrate and to commiserate and drown our sorrows. And if we move to a world in which we've all got to be separate and isolated, then pubs are doomed. So one of the things I understood clearly is that we had to go the opposite way. We had to absolutely stick up for who we are and what we do, and not compromise in any way, if at all possible. And that attitude has been good for us. If you, I don't know if you've ever been to the Raven, but you will find somewhere which is full of people, and it's intimate and it's cozy and it's robust. You know, you don't have to watch your damned language. No offense.
Yes.
Yes, you need to. You're not allowed to start a fight, and you need to be wearing some clothes. But apart from that, the whole world is welcome.
Excellent. Yeah, I wanted to ask you actually where the Raven is, because I went to university in Bath and actually met my first wife in Bath, and my first wife's wedding ring is actually sitting at the bottom of the River Avon, because she went all the way back to Bath after we split up and got divorced to throw the wedding ring in the river. I'm sorry to say, I occasionally come back and visit. So where is the Raven exactly? Because one of my pubs that I used to go to a lot.
Drinking up in a pub called the Hatchets. Do you remember the Hatchets?
I do.
That's it.
Okay.
I bought it in 2004 and turned it into the Raven.
Okay. All right. Great.
And we've since expanded. We took on the building next door, and we're quite big now.
Well, I'm going to come and visit you. Maybe we'll come and do a show for there. Pooch is just suggesting.
We have a library upstairs, which is a good acoustic room. If you want to do a show in the library, you're very welcome.
Brilliant. There you go, Pooch. They've got a library upstairs. I'll go and visit my ex-wife's wedding ring, and we'll go and have a couple of pints of the local ale. Brilliant stuff.
Come and have a beer. Come and meet
Rod
the
Humphreys, you are a local hero in Bath, but you're also a national hero for kicking Keir Starmer out of the pub. Shall we have another go at looking at the... thank you, Rod. Have a look. Let's have another look at him kicking Keir Starmer out of the pub, because it's such a good video. Let's go.
That man is not allowed in my pub. No, Laura. I'm not going to physically hurt him. That man... Oi! That's assault. I am not bothering you. I am not bothering him. That man is not allowed in my pub. Get out of my pub. Go on. Get out of my pub. Thank you.
Bring David Cameron back.
Absolutely brilliant. Rod, thank you very much indeed. We'll see you soon.
My pleasure.